maker. Make we do the right thing. Make we live good today for a better tomorrow. Talk it out. Don't fight it out. The time by the Ministry of National Security is
6:30.
The stabbing of a male student at Knox College by one of his schoolmates has again ignited debate around the issue of safety in schools. But a lot of the discourse seems unintelligent and oblivious of the fact that violence in communities and in the broad society are nothing in comparison to the violence that is in school itself. So are we saying that we're going to have a violent society, we have a violent community around the school, and that these schools should be Puritan? That's the discussion we're going to have today on Lead Story as we seek to answer the question, what can be done to curb rising violence in school? Is it just a school issue? Welcome to Lead Story here on this Wednesday here on CVM TV. So yes, a lot of the conversation around violence in schools seems to ignore the fact that we live in a violent society, that the schools themselves are part of communities where there's rampant violence in some cases and random acts of violence in most cases. And so how do we expect these schools to be immune to the issues that abound in the surrounding community and in the society at large? And how is it that we expect students who are constantly fed a steady diet of violence to act in the way we expect children to conduct themselves inside the halls of a school? What is it that we expect should cause immunity from the real issues and the influence of the community and the society broadly? To advance that discussion with me this evening, I'm being joined by Major Richard Cook. He's president of the Joytown Community Development Foundation. Richard Troop is the director of the school safety and security in the Ministry of Education and Youth. Good evening, gentlemen. Welcome to the program.
Good evening, my brother. Good evening to your listeners and to you.
Thank you very much. Major, may I start with you? That issue and the point that I'm pivoting from to say that we have this foolhardy expectation that schools will function normally and that children will behave in the way that we expect children to behave in a situation where they are products of violent communities and they are fed a steady diet of violence. Are you joining me in finding this to be a ridiculous premise around which much of the discourse around school violence is concerned?
I would agree with you, George. I'd have to say that that is true. The children live what they learn, what they experience. And so we have been working in Trenchtown and surrounding communities, including Tivoli, Denhamtown, Jonestown, Greenwichtown, Rosetown. And the fact is that we recognize there's some factors which need to be addressed. Parenting is critical because the children experience violence in the homes whilst the parents are attempting to discipline and not knowing how to discipline, not knowing how to communicate. So we have to run out of programs there, and it's something I'm hoping that the churches will take on more of. We have a number of churches doing work, but we've got to have more. The other thing is that the youngsters need support. So for the schools, for example, have got limited number of guidance counselors. We run programs in the schools. We run programs out of the school for out of school youth, but also we take children out of the schools for a year and then do an intervention with them, which helps them to have a positive experience in education, as well as to have a positive expectation of their ability to make something of themselves and to achieve. And we find that that really makes a lot of difference. But we must have case managers. We must actually treat those children as individuals. We have to get alongside them. Because of the environment from which they come, we actually have to do, sort of prescribed interventions.
Yes.
So overall, but then you need specific interventions for each child.
Yes.
What we have covered, very importantly, George,
Yes.
is that when the children are affirmed, when the children experience love, when the children, we don't, and it's hard to ask all the teachers to do this when you're in a big classroom.
Yes.
But when you are able to begin to see those children as individuals, deal with them as individuals, you can make a difference. But there must be work in the communities alongside the work in the schools in order to help the transformation process.
Yes.
So I think I've said a mouthful to start with. I will say more.
Appreciate your opening. Richard Troop, may I come to you and ask you this? The work of people like yourself, and the team that supports the work that you do, isn't that work made more difficult by the fact that the continuum of interventions that should exist outside the school, so that you're not really dealing with extreme cases of violence in school? Isn't it true that that continuum is broken, putting an undue burden on resource personnel like yourself to fix an issue that really ought to have been nipped in the bud at an earlier stage?
Absolutely, George. And your opening statement is so profound. And we continue to make this point within our education system, or stakeholders in education. We cannot treat with the violence in our schools in isolation of recognizing and treating with the violence in the home, school, and our general society. Our educators will continue to make the point, George, and I want the public to be uncomfortable about this reality. We would have invested significant effort to try to treat with the violence in our school, to try to treat with the behavioral issues that confront us every day. And oftentimes we do make significant changes and improvement. But I tell you what, when our boys and girls have to return to their homes and the community, that for them, violence is their lived experiences, it makes our work very difficult. It makes our effort unsustainable.
Yes.
And that's why for us, all the things we're doing in school, George,
yes,
it is critical that we also mobilize and engage other critical stakeholders,
yes,
within the family, within the homes, within civil society, and across ministries.
Hold the point right there from Richard Troop, speaking with two gentlemen who are learned in the issue on the matter of social intervention, where the youth especially are concerned, how to steer them away from a path of violence. And they're admitting that the intervention architecture, it's misaligned, it's, as my granny would say, ill-shaped, and it needs to be put into the right context for the best results to be yielded at the end of the process. More on Lead Story as we tackle this issue after these.
Ganga is an emotional saga of a woman's journey, all alone in a man's world.
Ganga, brought to you by
Hyundai or Hyundai.
You know my heart goes crazy when you take the lips to time. Let's explore our love. We'll leave the world behind. Can you feel me, baby?
Schoolboy Football, September 7 to December 14 on CVM TV.
Schoolboy Football, brought to you by Edgechem, AIM Financial Services, Texaco, and Connix.
Can you read to me the nameplate?
Judge Ebony K. Williams.
So the only thing that matters in this particular courtroom is how I see it. I'm going to find in favor of the plaintiff to the tune of $3,200.
the issue of violence in schools. And whenever there is an incident where blood is drawn and someone is wounded, sometimes mortally, otherwise, you hear the conversation reignited about the fact that, you know, schools are violent places and what is the government doing, what are the authorities doing. And I always say to myself, but that kind of thinking is misaligned, because what kind of children go to schools to perpetrate violence? What kind of home setting do they come from? What is their socialization outside of the schools? And I just believe that those inside these schools get a raw deal, who then have to confront the problem because they don't get help from the other sectors, from the other resource points on the continuum that ought to be helping them to manage the situation better. The JTA President-elect, Malaver, he's the principal of Yalas High School out there in St. Thomas. He joins the conversation as well. And President-elect, may I say to you that I've agreed with my two guests, Richard Troop and Major Richard Cook, that the issue rather of violence in schools, the approach to resolving the issue is misaligned. They've agreed with me on that, and they feel that much more needs to be done outside of the schools, in the community setting, to be able to send better behaved children to schools so that we can have a reduction of the problem that we have on our hands. And I put that to you and ask if you join us in believing that that's the right approach to start with addressing the problem.
I absolutely concur. You know, I have often heard the saying that schools are a microcosm of society. But in reality, schools were never created to be microcosms of society. Society was created to be macrocosms of schools. In other words, from a philosophical standpoint, it is schools that are supposed to shape society. Yeah, and we have got it backwards. I note with interest that Sir Troop's backdrop has trend on it, and trend has highlighted 7 pillars, but there's a critical pillar that is missing.
Yes,
which is that of parental support. And oftentimes we keep emphasizing the role of the teacher. We keep emphasizing the role of internal stakeholders of the education system. But we have really not tied down our parents in the way that they ought to be tied down. Eh? Many of the problems that are being faced in our schools goes right back to the homes. The reality is, George, is that, you know, the home is the first school that a child encounters. And the parent is the first teacher that a child encounters. And unfortunately, we are living in a society in which not every parent is a parent. Yeah. But as a society, as a society, and by extension, as a government, we have failed to put in the requisite legislation to hold parents accountable. And the data is there, George. I have often said this. You know that there's when you dissect the education system, what you find is that in violence, misbehavior is more predominant, or tends to be more predominant in upgraded high schools versus traditional high schools. Eh?
Yes.
And what I have found is that there's a direct correlation between students in terms of the socioeconomic spectrum, past students versus students who commit misdeeds in school, and versus students who are at the lower end in terms of academic performance.
Yes.
But we need to get behind the data and treat with some of these issues.
Yes.
I am saying, from where I sit, over the years, we have undermined the education system and the efforts of principals and
stakeholders broadly,
instead of level of discipline in our students.
Yes.
And I think from where we are, we need to hit the reset button.
Yes. Major, may I ask you this? The interventions that you make through the Joytown Foundation with the boys in these tough communities that you speak of, these communities have like it or not, have a reputation for being tough places to live, social disorder common in these places. Well, let me put that to you after the break, Major Cook. Just let's take the break on Lee's story and come right back with more.
Blessed love and greetings, guys. You don't know this is Mr. Kenny representing Full 100 for Cooking with Love with Chef Simpson.
Alright, guys, welcome to a brand new episode of Cooking with Love. And this week's episode changed up a little bit. We're in a soca world. And we have the big man himself right here in New York. The man is on tour. It's the killer himself. Is in the building. You can't go there.
I ain't give the food to eat and I give the food to taste. You don't know, Mr. Kenny representing Full 100 for the Big Bad Cooking Show, Cooking with Love.
You give me fever when the food speeds dance, when the vibe nice.
The time by Grace. Taste that moves you is
6:45.
No more fear of missing out. CVM TV News is on YouTube. Get up-to-date news, sports, and business content at CVM TV News anytime, anywhere. Subscribe now to CVM TV News to see it happen.
Major Richard Cook, Richard Troop, Mark Malavra are with me, and we're talking about school safety. And I was putting to Major Cook before the break the issue of the success of his foundation in getting through to the boys, especially from these tough communities that the community has its tentacles in, and the parents of these boys. If you have measured and seen that you are making headway in getting through to them and trying to curb the sort of behavior that would manifest in violent interactions with their peers inside the schools, Major Cook.
Yes, George, we have seen it. Difficult with the 14 to 15-year-olds, more difficult. But we definitely have had tremendous successes.
And why is the 14, 15-year-olds particularly difficult?
Because that's a stage where the boys begin to think they're men and where they get challenged within their communities to actually take up badness, to carry guns and so on, right? We've had some of them who have dons as fathers, and their ambition, even some without dons as fathers, their ambition is to be a don.
Yes.
And so we have to treat with that. What we have found, I want to just start by supporting Mark Malava in saying that it starts in the home. We have observed that where there is strong parenting in the inner city, within the same environment, the children function differently. They do much better. We have seen some go to college overseas, and they come back as bankers, etc. Right? Do well in high school here, Wolmer's and JC and elsewhere. So it does start with parenting, and I know the government has a parenting commission doing a push, but Joytown does a wraparound program, right? Which includes making sure that we get to the parents. We have the case management. We do what we call outward bounds or sports for development activities. So we do a lot of things to try and move the needle. But Joytown, I feel like the man walking on the beach with a whole pile of starfish, and we're throwing back the starfish. We need this thing to be multiplied.
Yes.
And I believe we can multiply it through the church. People are not coming into the church anymore.
Yes.
But the church must now go out into the community.
Yes.
With community impact programs,
Yes.
measurable.
Yes.
And I gather, but good news is that the Prime Minister has actually commissioned a report as to what is happening out there and what is going well, with the idea of ensuring that the churches become more involved because the churches are everywhere.
Yes.
And one of the things that the boys need is to learn to be better socialized. Some of the children are definitely not socialized. They can't help themselves, right? But they also need to learn a thing called forgiveness. And this is why there's no self-control. So somebody steps on my shoe and it's quite okay for me to put a knife into it.
Yes.
Because life is not greatly valued. Yes. And a lot of these children are suffering from trauma. I mean, I had a fellow who saw his stepfather shoot his father.
Yes.
Father dropped on the ground, father get up, and the guy shot him again and killed him.
Yes.
Right in front of this young man.
Yes.
This is the kind of lived experiences these young people have.
Yes.
So what would you expect of them when they go into the school environment? And the lawlessness, general lawlessness in the society is a definite problem.
Definite problem. Richard Troop, so let me ask you then, with the enormous burden being placed on you and your support team, because every time there's a report of a violent interaction in schools, people ask about, well, they call upon you to give comment, and I often said, well, what do you expect the gentleman to say? It is clear to you where the problem lies. So what headway have you made in trying to get the authorities, the ministry and those higher than the Ministry of Education, to say, look, this is how you need to support the work that the Safe Schools officers and the Safe Schools personnel do from time to time, because asking us to fix a problem that comes to us flush, that comes to us full on, it's an exercise in futility. Have you made headway in having this kind of intervention made to support the work that you do?
George, we're absolutely making headway. Take, for example, what we would have been doing in the 7 declared zones of special operation. The Ministry of Education, in partnership with the Ministry of National Security, would have conceptualized the interministerial school support strategy to provide target support to 34 primary and high schools located within the zones of special operation. This intervention is supported by the Ministry of Health and Wellness, by the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, by the HART NSTA. It is a commitment to work collaboratively and in a way, in an extensive way, in a way that will sustain the gains over time. This is not a slapdash kind of response. We're seeing also opportunities for partnership. I know the National Commission on Violence Prevention is very interested to do a comprehensive study on school violence. In addition to that, the Commission is also committed in that study to also do the analysis of what is it that the ministry has been doing in terms of intervention, and to what extent these have been working. And for those that are working, how do we further upscale these models of behavior change intervention? We are partnering with, if you notice in recent time, again, another cause for concern, we have been articulating this in many forums. The proliferation of small arms in this country poses a serious threat to our safety and security of our nation's children, of the school environment. As a ministry, we're looking at policy. We're looking at a policy to treat with the presence and use of firearms in school that is supported by UN LYRIC. We are working on our safe school policy that is supported by UNICEF. We are working on a policy to treat with the reintegration of children in conflict with the law. Our police data has shown that many of our children are not only victims of violence, but perpetrators of some of the most violent crimes. A lot of these are school-age children that need to return back to a place of learning. How do we create the kind of protocol to support the continuity of education for these children? Because I say to many of my colleagues in education, and that's why our safe school policy is so important, we have to move beyond suspensions and expulsions as tool to treat with the situations we're seeing in school. Because we expel them and suspend them to what? What is it that we need to do differently in terms of intervention to support the child, his family, and community? To really get the best out of the educational opportunity available.
Hear you on that. Who's that? Do I hear Major Cook trying to come in? Yes. Quickly, we're almost out of time. Yes.
All right. So I just wanted to say that what Richard Troop is saying about all the stakeholders working together. And we have seen it. We get a lot of cooperation. We work with the police. We do training. We help them in training in youth-friendly ways of operating techniques. Youth, what they call it, sport for development, and with the youth, with the ministry, with the schools, because we work with a lot of the schools in the inner cities, both at the primary level and the secondary education, and with the Ministry of Education. And it has to be a comprehensive, all hands on deck stakeholders. And the churches that keep pushing it are positioned in the communities to be serious agents of helping this transformation.
I'm way out of time, but I would be remiss not to give the president-elect of the JTA a last word in about 30 seconds. Mark Malaver, is there enough being done to make positive headway where the issue of school violence and resolving that is concerned, do you think?
I don't think so. But for me, there's always room for improvement. It needs to be better coordinated. It needs all hands on deck. It needs continuous assessment and evaluation, and being very strategic and deliberate and targeting specific schools.
Hear you on that. I'm sorry, I'm out of time, gentlemen. The clock is my enemy. Mark Malaver, thank you very much. Major Richard Cook, thank you. Richard Troop, thank you very much as well. There's only time enough for me to say, well, the only thing we can't do in this situation, we can't surrender. Stakeholders can't surrender. Parents can't surrender. The churches can't surrender. The church must stop its retreat to the sidelines while these problems fester. The schools have to be on the front foot. The teachers as well, and those resource personnel working out of the education ministry who support the work of the teachers. We can't surrender. The problem of violence in schools is not a school violence problem. It's a community violence problem. If we have better behaved picnic going to school, then we won't have picnic meeting out violence to and against their peers. It's as simple as that. We can't fix violence in schools by going into the schools to fix violence in schools. It's a nonsense approach. That's my time this evening. I make way now for the news at 7, and Mika is in place. Did I catch you? Oh, I love her colors. Your colors are lovely once again, Mika.
Thank you.
Maybe I should be the one taking style tips from you from now on, eh?
We can share.
We can share. All right. The news at 7 comes up after this.
No more fear of missing out. CVM TV News is on YouTube. Get up-to-date news, sports, and business content at CVM TV News anytime, anywhere. Subscribe now to CVM TV News to see it happen.
Blessed love and greetings, guys. You don't know this is Mr. Kelly representing Full 100 for Cooking with Love with Chef Simpson.
Alright guys, welcome to a brand new episode of Cooking with Love. And this week's episode changed up a little bit. Soca world. And we have the big man himself right here in New York, the man is on tour. Mr. Killer himself is in the building.
Small business owners and independent contractors get affordable insurance with Sagicor Pro Shield. The time by Sagicor Life is
7 o'clock.
CVM News at 7 Wednesday headlines, courtesy of Heart NSDA Trust, Jamaica's Human Development Agency.
Tonight in CVM News at 7, beryllium worker and spouse arrested in multi-million-dollar fraud. MP threatens Integrity Commission funding amid heated debate. PNP accuses government of withholding aid in Western Westmoreland. Michael Phillips referred for IC prosecution. In the business report, human agency in the age of AI. And in sports, government secures funding for National Stadium redevelopment. This is CVM News at 7. Here is Nika Lewis.
It's Wednesday, October 16, 2024. Thanks for joining us. We begin with a developing story. A senior beryllium worker and his common-law spouse are now facing serious charges following a multi-million-dollar seizure in Portmore, St. Catherine yesterday. The detainees are facing charges under the new Firearms Act and under the Proceeds of Crime Act, POCA. More from Trisha Gay Kelly.
2 people have been arrested in connection with the seizure of more than $100 million during a major operation led by the Counterterrorism and Organized Crime Investigations Branch CTOC and the St. Catherine South Police Division on Tuesday afternoon at a residence in Caribbean Estate, Portmore, St. Catherine. The suspects are a 32-year-old man employed as a treasury custodian at the company and his 32-year-old common-law spouse, a former employee of the company.
Between the hours of 5 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. today, Tuesday, October 15, 2024, intel-driven operation was conducted at premises 22D, St. Vincent Boulevard. The operation yielded approximately 50 million Jamaican dollars, US currency and British pounds. 4 high-end motor vehicles were seized, as well as 2 firearms. 2 adults were arrested. They will be processed and charged under the Proceeds of Crime offences as well as the Firearms Act.
He notes the shift in pattern with individuals conducting lottery scamming in recent times, where not only are they engaging in the illicit activity, but they are now often heavily armed. The police explained these suspects were long under their radar, adding that airtight cases are critical to ending crime. Meanwhile, he reasons the investigation will be better served with partnership from the U.S., given the magnitude of the find and seizures.
Based on the amount of monies that were seized here today, it is obvious that we will have to include our external partners. FID, which is the Financial Investigation Division, MOCA, if needs be, the U.S. Embassy. Our partners at the U.S. Embassy will be invited to sit around a table for us to discuss and do this investigation together.
The police have long wrestled with lottery scammers and continue to remind Jamaicans of the consequences of such crimes today. Trisha Gay Kelly, CVM News.
A flash flood watch has been issued for several southern parishes in Jamaica due to the impact of a tropical wave currently affecting the region. This alert was officially announced by the Meteorological Service of Jamaica, indicating that low-lying and flood-prone areas are particularly at risk. The flash flood watch encompasses the following parishes: St. Thomas, Kingston, St. Andrew, St. Catherine, Clarendon, Manchester, St. Elizabeth and Westmoreland. Residents in these areas are advised to remain vigilant as heavy rainfall is expected to continue throughout the week. Residents are also advised to monitor local news outlets and heed any warnings or advisories issued by the Met Service. It is crucial for individuals living in flood-prone areas to also prepare emergency kits, have evacuation plans ready, and stay informed about changing weather conditions. Tempers flared in Parliament on Tuesday as an outspoken government MP took aim at the Integrity Commission, raising serious questions about its operations. This following a historic meeting Tuesday between the Commission and its Oversight Committee. With more details, here's Ramon Gordon.
Yesterday, CVM TV brought you a showdown at Gordon House, where tensions between the Integrity Commission and government members boiled. Those tensions escalated in the lower house Tuesday, as fiery MP Efrold Warmington stoked the flames, vowing to block any further funding for the commission until he sees an audit.
I'm saying, Minister, I expect that the audit, we get an audit report of that department before the next financial year, before next budget comes here. There's no way we're going to approve another $2 billion for a department that has not been audited for years.
Warmington accused the Commission of neglecting to submit audited financial reports for years, a claim that the Integrity Commission swiftly rubbished. In a release Wednesday, the Commission said its accounts have been independently audited for years and that the latest report was just tabled 3 months ago. They further argued that Warmington, as a member of the very oversight committee that reviews these reports, should be aware of their existence. This latest clash comes on the heels of mounting scrutiny over the Commission's handling of a controversial report. Just hours before Warmington's remarks, Integrity Commission Chairman Justice Seymour Panton made an unprecedented appearance before the Oversight Committee, fiercely condemning allegations of misconduct and calling out government leaders for not standing up against the attacks.
There is a member of parliament who was actually, Mr. Chairman, sent out a document with the photographs of 4 of us saying that we are bringing down the government. I have not heard any parliamentarian condemn it. I hope somebody will take the leadership to correct them.
As the standoff deepens, the rift between the Commission and government shows no signs of closing anytime soon. Just yesterday, at least one government MP called for the IC's chair to resign. Ramon Gordon for CVM News.
Still on politics, Manchester Member of Parliament Michael Phillips is now in a tight spot with the Integrity Commission after the IC reported that the MP breached the Commission's Act. But Phillips is adamant these are mere allegations. On Wednesday, news surfaced that the MP is to be charged. With more, here's Trisha Gay Kelly.
So, Nika, Manchester Northwestern Member of Parliament Michael Phillips is under heavy scrutiny after the Integrity Commission IC referred him for prosecution. This as a penalty for what the IC says is a breach of its act, which requires public officials to submit their statutory declarations on time. The MP admitted that his submission was late. However, his late submission fee of $250,000 was also not paid on time. For this reason, the IC is looking to charge Phillips, who is adamant he did not breach the IC Act. The matter, when taken to court, will judge whether the MP's reasons were valid. That's according to Attorney at Law Michael Williams.
The member has stated that he was late because of some reasons and that he in fact paid the fine. If he can show that he took reasonable steps to obtain the information and that there were administrative delay on the part of the financial institutions, then a court may look at it and say, well, in the circumstances, this delay was reasonable.
However, he explains the IC's position is understandable and very important at this time.
If we do not engender this kind of culture where the IC is acting and taking steps against public officials, then the old style of doing business will continue to remain.
The attorney, having experience in filing declarations for clients himself, is quite knowledgeable of the challenges with the process. He is urging politicians to go above and beyond to secure their standing with the IC.
I would encourage members of parliament to be a little bit more proactive. If you know that your deadline is to be met and you are having difficulties, the reasonable thing to do is to write to the IC and explain the difficulties you are having.
Trisha Gay Kelly, CVM News.
In other news now, a man is hospitalized following a collision involving 3 vehicles in New Bowens, Clarendon. Reports are that at about 7 p.m., a Toyota Axio motor car struck a cow after it wandered onto the roadway. The impact propelled the cow into a nearby motorcycle, injuring the rider. The Axio then spun out of control and collided with a Toyota RAV4. However, the animal died on the spot. The authorities were alerted to the scene. The motorcyclist was rushed to the hospital with life-threatening injuries, while the driver of the Axio suffered minor injuries. The driver of the RAV4 was, however, unharmed. The police continue to encourage farmers to properly secure their animals, as a number of animal-related crashes have resulted in the loss of lives over the years. More to come from CVM News at 7 after this break.
CVM News at 7 Wednesday headlines, courtesy of Heart NSDA Trust, Jamaica's Human Development Agency.
Yeah man, make some noise because Burger King Double Deal Big 2 is back to $16.50. You get 2 whole Burger King combo. It's a win-win. Big 2 combos. Whopper Junior Cheese with bacon, American chicken sandwich, or big fish sandwich combo for only $16.50. Spend one money, win 2 times. Food for me, I'm a party, or just for me. Cause me hungry right now. Myself and I go hungry later. You see it. One money, 2 food. Listen. One money, 2 food. Win-win. Burger King Double Deal Big 2.
When Sagicor Bank thinks of a woman, here's what we see. We see business leaders managing sole trader businesses to large corporations. We see university graduates as our women uplift themselves academically. We see more home owners, ambitious women working hard to build their own legacy. We see leadership at home, with women proudly providing for and taking care of their families. We see entrepreneurs, Jamaican women playing a leading role in our economic growth. At Sagicor Bank, we see the invaluable contribution of women in the home, communities, businesses, and development of our country. That's why we're in their corner, supporting Jamaica's women as they strive to achieve their dreams.
CVM News at 7 Wednesday, courtesy of...
Your love lives on with life insurance from Sagicor.
Welcome back. A vice president of the People's National Party is alleging that representatives of the governing Jamaica Labour Party are withholding assistance from constituents because of their political affiliations. Britannia Witter has more.
Ian Hill, the People's National Party's chairman for Westmoreland Western, alleges he has received reports from residents claiming they have yet to acquire aid following devastation caused by Hurricane Beryl.
And I've been getting a lot of calls from citizens that they were affected. Their names were set down to be a beneficiary of state resources, taxpayer resources, because they were affected by Beryl. And up to now, as I speak, there is no attention being paid to them.
The caretaker claims the residents are being denied access to care packages simply because they identify with the PNP.
If you don't wear the color green, you can't get the food. If you were affected by Beryl and you're a member of the People's National Party, they're not giving you anything. They feel victimized that because they belong to a political party that isn't green, they're somewhat left victimized by the system and by the government at this time.
In response, the Member of Parliament for Westmoreland Western, Moreland Wilson, dismissed the accusations as unfounded, asserting that assistance is issued based on need, not political affiliation.
It's absolute rubbish, and I refute all claims being made. In fact, if the candidate for the opposition party had checked with the opposition councillors, he would have found out, and they would have told him that during the course of the recovery efforts by the government, that Moreland Wilson, Member of Parliament, would have asked them to submit names of persons who were badly affected so we can do an assessment.
During Tuesday's State of the Constituency debate, Wilson also disclosed that over 100 residents received checks as a part of the government's Hurricane Beryl relief efforts.
And Social Security for the tremendous work in identifying some 148 constituents, issuing them with checks ranging from 50,000 to 400,000. Mr. Speaker, this is in addition to the 240 constituents who receive hardware assistance from the constituency office.
Britannia Witter, CVM News.
You know, some of the most compelling stories come alive when shared by our matriarchs. And in order to document unforgettable moments, CVM's Clarendon Brown has been traveling the island for our new series, Living the Life, which begins now. So, Clarendon, in which parish did you start?
You know, I would think that was a great question and a great place to start. But that's one of the questions I did pose to the adorable Jamaican woman that I had the opportunity to sit and chat with before she transitioned. I can tell you, however, that she was well beyond 100 years old.
Living the life defies time and laws, surpasses storms, hurricanes, wars, recession, pandemics. Like a photo book on the global stage, Jamaica too is documenting rare gems.
You see everybody come around to look for you because you're 107.
107. I look for you.
Showing she still got the magic. Life packed with love. That love has been flowing steadily through generations with this Jamaican pearl, who 7 years ago now started over the count at 1 to surpass one of the youngest members of her family after gracefully hitting the elusive century.
Where are you from?
Grantham.
Which parish is that?
Clarendon.
Awesome!
Her birth certificate confirms the place of her birth and her birth date, February 7, 1917. She's the second of 8 children for Ethelyn Briscoe, who was a laborer. Her father was George Mills. Her limbs may be frail at 107, but Miss Cass, as she's also called, remains very close to where her heart is at this stage.
Life is real. I have to pressure people with anything. You understand me? Because you can't love other people something. Why you special?
It's hard not to detect on whom she places her existence in her sometimes whispered tones. Just look how easily she catches up to familiar outbursts.
Our Father,
what in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is done in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those that trespass against us.
Counted among the small, distinguished group of persons to enjoy the blessings of life at 107 years of age, reads part of Jamaica's head of state, Governor General Sir Patrick Allen's formal acknowledgement letter, delivered to this centenarian, accepted with pride by her loved ones.
Thank you. Grandma, CVM said enjoy every moment. Say, tell them thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
See it happen as Living the Life continues with this 107-year-old Jamaican woman. Living the life defies time and laws.
Of course, I'll have part 2 for you next Wednesday, and you can help by linking us to people, places, and things living the life. Please drop me an email, kbrown@cvmtv.com. Nika, they always remember the 23rd Psalm, don't?
They do. I noticed that she was squinting. Was she able to even see you?
Oh, yes. And she fed herself. Listen, wait for part 2.
I can't wait. All right, with that, we take back some more look into the news because concerns surrounding a lack of religious education, history, and social studies teachers have prompted the idea for some religious stakeholders to step in and fill those roles. But not all educators are in agreement. They argue that teaching requires regulation and training while linking the shortage to the ongoing issue of teacher migration. With more, here's Courtney Lewis, who is taking us back to school.
The suggestion to have pastors and religious leaders in schools to fill a teacher shortage came as an oddity for some education stakeholders. Some argue that while religion has its place in society, teaching requires something more.
Not because you're a pastor makes you one very versed on religion. You might be versed on your denomination or your ideals of religion, but not overall religion.
Teaching is an art. It requires training to be an effective teacher. You don't, not because a taxi driver has a driver's license doesn't mean that he can fly a plane.
That's the word from head of the National Parent-Teacher Association of Jamaica, Stuart Jacobs, and the president-elect of the Jamaica Teachers Association, Mark Malava. Malava further argues religion has always played a role in the education framework, but does not address the deeper issue of teacher shortage.
What we're experiencing now within our education system is not just shortage of STEM teachers. There are shortages in other areas, and that affects the education system and the delivery of education, particularly as it relates to various subject areas. It requires I have been on record that it requires a particular response from the Ministry of Education in treating with these issues.
Encourage the teachers that are here to stay. Encourage those teachers that are in the queue to come into the teaching process now. The next cohort of teachers need to look at their salary package, their compensation package overall, to encourage them to stay in the classroom, and not only to stay in the classroom, but give a long-term stint in classrooms.
The ministry's latest reports a decline in migration figures, but the JTA reported a 10% loss of teachers in the 2023 to 2024 school year, and in the previous year, over 1,500, signaling teacher migration remains a concern. I'm Courtney Lewis. Back to you, Nika.
Thanks, Courtney. Well, we'll come back with more news at 7 after this break.
That's it, we're closed. I am so sorry, we only have 3 parties left.
It's a Jamaican thing, but full of flavor. Hey, we set the trend style major. Juicy patty, have a savor. You know the party nice when we do the juicy patty bones. Patty bones, patty bones, watch it bones, watch it bones. Hot patty, watch it steam. Juicy patty bones, patty bones, patty bones, watch it bones, watch it bones. Juicy patty, ready for we go. From food I keep in our party. Juicy patty, have something for everybody. So patty for nice. Patty bones, watch it bones, watch it bones. Hot patty, watch it steam. Juicy patty bones. Grab your family and do the juicy patty bones.
That's me on the corner. People don't bother feel like you can predict who is going to be in the shop with me. A ship carry you back at You're controversial. How old were you?
8 years old.
Now we're contemplating. These are the digits. What kind of episode this one? Another junction in life.
I have 2 left foot then, sir.
Yeah, you know. Yeah, man. See the buckle of the Nigeria now. This is my show and you will not drop word from me.
They even know them things.
TJ, I can't say that no. You're going to mash up somehow.
You know, say barber shop is really there ready to make your cut.
So, where you cut before? The cut, okay. Now I'm where I want to be.
The Cut is brought to you by Flow.
Welcome back. Now to the business report with Joel Crosskill.
Lots to share with you in the business report today. In terms of human agency in the age of AI, which entered the chat at the recent unveiling of ITEL's new artificial intelligence platform, Itelligence, intended to enhance efficiencies within the contact center operations, while augmenting the performance and capabilities of human agents. Founder, chairman, and CEO Yoni Epstein frames it in this way.
AI is the buzzword of the day, particularly around all industries, but a lot of people are watching to see what is happening inside of the BPO industry. If we don't do this, that is where you get left behind. A lot of people have said AI is not what's going to replace the jobs. It's the people using AI that's going to replace the jobs.
The irony is not lost on the BR that ITEL's longest-serving employee, Chief Technology Officer Dwayne Williams, was best placed to describe how the technology is intended to be leveraged.
I have been in the BPO industry for 23 years, and since then I believe the most significant change is the introduction of artificial intelligence. For us, we need to be able to continue to provide value that is ahead of where the industry is right now, so that's one of the primary drivers behind the need for this solution. An innovation specifically within the AI space. AI was chosen as a core technology behind intelligence because of the efficiency gains we get from utilizing AI. What that means is we are able to scale indefinitely.
In the industry, on average, contact centers can monitor quality across 2% of its calls. With AI, that percentage moves up to 100%. The benefits of the platform's ability to quickly analyze data across a wider sample pool and then push out the information in real time, in part emerge from the decision to develop the technology in-house, giving ITEL greater ability to fine-tune the technology and train the AI to transcribe and analyze call data using the Caribbean accent, which leads to a greater level of accuracy in data analysis and insights produced by the iTelligence platform. Egbert von Frankenberg, CEO for Nightfox App Design, who assisted ITEL in its digital transformation and AI strategy, described the benefits relating to the training and coaching of agents.
iTelligence consolidates multiple data sources, such as CRM systems, call recordings, and AI data. This will allow for a more centralized and easily accessible platform, and it eliminates the data silos that we are used to. We foresee a future where agents can transition into roles such as automation specialists, AI trainers, or data analysts, roles that go far beyond traditional customer service. This allows them to provide a richer and more meaningful customer experience while growing professionally in ways they were not possible with traditional technologies.
Using microlearning and other methods to support the workforce and give rise to what ITEL has coined as the super agent is going to be depending on AI leveraging AI to improve their efficiencies and delivery.
Developing that agent that can effectively handle customer interaction that is indistinguishable from a human agent is a priority for us right now, because we know that that exists to an extent, but I know some people look at it more of a gimmick than an actual alternative. But based on what we're doing right now and what we're looking at, we know that there will be a material value in introducing that as a feature into iTelligence, and I think that will be a game changer in the industry as once that is perfected.
And there may also come a day when at least some of that delivery will be done via a synthesized Jamaican accent.
The hottest tool in AI and call centers right now is actually a voice synthesizer, which basically you talk into the microphone and it levels out your voice to be able to understand it and hear it more clearly. Thankfully, we don't need that in most of our jurisdictions. The only place that we actually use that is in Honduras with the Spanish accent, and particularly because English is not their first language. Actually, the Jamaican accent being one that is very, very sought after, we have said if we go down that direction, we're going to train it to have a Jamaican accent and use that everywhere. And that would be another differentiator of ours.
Imagine what Alan Turing would have to say about that. And that was your Business Report. I'm Joel Crossgill.
We're up on a quick break, but stay with us for so much more.
A big deal when we touch the ground. Yeah, a KFC when we're pulling up. Anything for the taste of a KFC, big deal. The time by KFC is
Jamaica, get ready! Saturday, October 26th, live on the lawns of Uimona. It's Boys to Men. Singing your favorite hits. Also performing live, Tess and Chin and Lee Like It. Get your tickets now at caribtix.com, Kingston, Jer, and Fontana. Saturday, October 26, 2024. It's Boys to Men, live on the lawns of Uimona. Starts at 8 p.m. Sponsored by Supreme Ventures, Mayberry, Main Event, Island Grill, and Courtly Hospitality Group.
That's it. We're closed. I am so sorry. We only have 3 parties left.
It's a Jamaican thing, but full of flavor. Hey, we set the trend style major. Juicy patty, have a savor. You know the party nice when we do the juicy patty bones. Patty bones, patty bones, watch your bones, watch your bones. Hot patty, watch your steam. Juicy patty bones, patty bones, patty bones, watch your bones, watch your bones. Juicy patty, ready for we go. From food I keep in our party. Juicy patty, have something for everybody. So patty for nice. Patty bones, watch your bones, watch your bones. Hot patty, watch your steam. Juicy patty bones. Grab your family and do the juicy patty bones.
Welcome back. It's now time for a look at what's happening on our digital pages.
So, what's trending in our local social media spaces? Rain, rain, go away. The Jamaica Constabulary Force released an advisory today to warn the public that Marcus Garvey Drive, Birdsucker Lane, and Grandspan Road were impassable due to flooding. Here are some of your reactions. At Damon Enzog says, Probox can take that on easy. At Prince_hype comments, taxi man dem a fly through that. At Del_me2 posts, road afi take on by all means. A fly we fly through that. At Anthony_Swade shares, as Licorian do Marcus Garvey Drive flood out. Right now, a boat me have a look for go home. Kiss me teeth. At Jermaine4x4 writes, the government of Jamaica should be ashamed. Poor drainage systems. At Kwenga1 replies, bro, we just had about 4 hours of heavy downpour non-stop. How government are gonna stop flooding? At Vigilant_sadist adds, it's only who understands it cross it. And that's what's trending online today. Continue to share your thoughts with us on X at CVM TV and CVM_television on Instagram. I'm Courtney Lewis.
We now look overseas with regional and international news.
We begin with news in the region. The Dominican Republic said Tuesday it has deported or repatriated nearly 11,000 Haitians in the past week, fulfilling a pledge to do so weekly as neighboring Haiti scrambles to handle the influx while besieged by gang violence and poverty. That report from France 24.
The Dominican president's crackdown on undocumented Haitian migrants continues, with a new deportation target of 10,000 a week.